I don't know how the producers of that Showtime promo got this clip. I don't know if they got it from Black Belt Magazine, who did the article on the Kumite. I don't know if they got it from Frank Dux. I think they needed something.
Well, I got to give him something. Come on, where's that tape I shot?
I think that's it.
Let's check it out.
And this footage, you know, is kind of mysterious enough. Hey guys, I thought it'd be fun to do a breakdown analysis on that Showtime Bloodsport promo that came out back in the day. So I know a lot of you guys never seen this or seen it for the first time recently. And if you want to see the whole thing uninterrupted, I did post it on my channel. I'll link it in the description below. This is actually pretty cool. Now, obviously, these kind of promos are going to exaggerate certain things. But let's go ahead and break this thing down objectively.
A flying jump kick 7 feet in the air. A secret arena, and a deadly competition.
So going back right to the beginning, a flying jump kick.
A flying jump kick 7 feet in the air.
So basically that is obviously exaggerated. 7 feet in the air. Bolo's about 5'6". So obviously that would be the top of his head. Van Damme hitting him in the jaw is basically, you know, is closer to 5 feet. So, don't get me wrong, Van Damme has incredible athleticism, and this is probably, outside of kickboxer, the best display of his helicopter kick we've ever seen. And of course, he could hit somebody or a target that's 7 foot in the air, but he'd probably be angled more like this, because as athletically impressive as he is, which is showcased in Bloodsport, where you see him do these amazing jumps. I don't think anyone's really going to be parallel like that, kicking a target 7 feet high. So that doesn't take anything away from Van Damme. But for the promos, if they say it a flying jump kick 5 feet in the air, 5.5 feet in the air, that doesn't sound nearly as impressive. I mean, 7 feet. Like, no one's even really 7 feet tall aside from maybe some guys that play basketball. So, you know, it's just an exaggeration. But either way, Van Damme's got crazy height on that jump. And even the way the camera is angled makes it look even more impressive.
A secret arena and a deadly competition.
A secret arena and a deadly competition. It just adds a lot of intrigue and mystery, no doubt. And that ties into what they say shortly.
American ninja in Hong Kong, in pursuit of a dream and pursued by his own government.
As far as being pursued by his own government, so going with the real Bloodsport story as told by Frank Dux, that part never happened. He was never pursued by the government. I believe Sheldon Lettich, screenwriter, had even said they kind of needed to add like a few things to kind of dramatize the story for the film. So it is cool to see a very young Forrest Whitaker in this before he would go on to become the huge star that he is, winning the Academy Award, etc. So, yeah, that was cool. And I think him and Van Damme to this day are actually still friends.
It's the stuff martial arts films are made of. Comic book heroes with supernatural abilities.
Comic book heroes with supernatural abilities. So here's the really cool thing about this era of film, because right now superhero films are like the most popular thing, and kids want to be superheroes. Obviously no one's going to be like Spider-Man in real life, right? But what we had in the 80s and 90s growing up is we could become very much like this. I've always said lifting weights and martial arts are about the closest you could get to being a superhero, but you got to put the work in. You got to be dedicated. And it was a fun pursuit. A lot of you guys like me still train martial arts to this day because of movies like this, and they exposed you to it, and then it just became part of your life. So that's why movies like this are so special. Whereas I can't imagine a kid growing up now watching Spider-Man or the Avengers and growing up where that would still impact their life and what they've become. Like, we become martial artists or fitness people because of movies like this. They would basically not really have anything that would affect their lives growing up. So this was a very interesting time to grow up, no doubt, that shaped us in a lot of ways. I just don't see how the modern films these days can actually do that. Though it leads to a bigger discussion about reality, right? Of how somebody wants to identify. Like, for example, if somebody wants to identify as a unicorn, then we have to go along with that and call him a unicorn, or else we'll be canceled. We just got to go along with it. So with movies like this, what they inspired us to be like martial artists, and like, yeah, we could identify as a martial artist because we are martial artists. Anyway, that's the difference between the 80s and today, and you know, the generation that grew up then compared to now.
But the most unbelievable part of Bloodsport is that it really happened. Meet Frank Dux.
Now, the most unbelievable thing about Bloodsport is that it really happened. A lot of people question that. I actually had Frank Dux on the channel, and we made a lot more sense of it. You should check out these series of videos. I got a whole playlist featuring Frank Dux talking about all this stuff, making sense of the Kumite. So I'll link that in the description below. You guys should definitely check it out.
The first American to win the Kumite, a deadly martial arts competition.
I gotta say, like, if you see Frank, like, in this promo, this is, like, definitely one of his cooler looks. He does actually look like a badass, and he's a big guy, so you could totally buy the fact that he could win these martial art tournaments, fights. Like, he obviously has the skills, he's got the size, well, he would have competed when he was younger than this, so obviously he's got the youth. A lot of people will question it, though, but again, you gotta watch the video. Frank Dux explaining the Real Kumite, because it's more like Masayama and his 100-man Kumites. It's not quite like how they portrayed in the film, and they do take a lot of liberties with film. I mean, think about it. Even look at Dragon the Bruce Lee story. As amazing as Bruce Lee is, they did have to exaggerate certain things in that film.
Oh, that's real. I think so, too.
Where the only rule is to win.
A lot of people liken it to a human cockfight. You've got to understand that Asia is lined with one secret society after another. And that's probably why the event has been kept secret for so long.
Now, when Frank Dux actually explains these fights, some of them were more akin to the fights in Lionheart, where they would have these underground fights, sort of like Kimbo Slice would. It made that popular when, obviously, you know, video cameras were more popular, and they filmed it, and he blew up on YouTube. So I don't doubt that Frank was involved in some of these underground fights, and they would supposedly culminate in a tournament, I believe every 4 or 5 years. And the one that Bloodsport was supposed to be based off of happened in the Bahamas as opposed to Hong Kong. But what a cool setting Hong Kong makes for a movie.
Not a place for outsiders. You are in Hong Kong, but you are about to cross an invisible border into mainland China.
And just how did an American enter the secret world of the ninja? At 12 and a half, Frank had no confidence in himself, and he wanted to be the best at something. Then he met Tanaka, an ex-Kumite champ. In a relationship that transcended both culture and the centuries, Tanaka passed down the ancient secrets of the ninja. Techniques that date back 2,000 years to the time when Genghis Khan ruled the Orient.
As far as Genghis Khan ruling the Orient, I think that was closer to 1,000 years ago. I think he was born in like 1100, 1200 era. So, you know, not quite 2,000 years.
And the notorious ninja warriors roamed Japan, earning the reputation as the world's first secret agents.
So the ninjas, I think, basically emerged in the 15th century. So that was closer to 500 years ago. And as far as becoming like the first secret agents, I think that is true. They were spies of sorts. So, but just the narrator talking about 2,000 years ago sounds a lot cooler than, you know, just being more specific. Oh, about 1,000 years ago when Genghis Khan ruled the Orient, and ninjas about 500 years ago. It's just 2,000 just flows better, sounds better. And it was still a long time ago.
Look, Frank, the government has invested a lot of time and money in you. Uncle Sam can't afford to let you get hurt.
I won't get hurt.
Enter modern-day secret agent Frank Dux. His activities are so confidential.
Now, this is actually cool. I've never seen this footage outside of this promo where Dukes is basically doing these multi-kicks on this double M bag. Very similar to what Van Damme would do at the beginning of Bloodsport when he's doing his roundhouses and spin kicks on that speed bag. So, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And then Van Damme, of course, would do his multi-kicks in the fight as well during the Kumite match. Impressive stuff. So Frank Dux, just like Van Damme's got great balance and control on these kicks.
But the film only touches upon the topic.
I'm not in a position to deny or confirm anything at this point in my life. All I can tell you is I'm not the type of guy who kisses and tells, and I took an oath, and I plan on obeying that oath.
So that's actually pretty interesting. First thing,
obeying that oath.
I do want to point out, which is funny. So obviously, Van Damme portrayed him in the film Bloodsport, but a lot of people pointed this part out in the comments section, like just kind of like his mannerisms and that soft, calm voice. A lot of people are reminded of Steven Seagal, and they're actually closer to the same size in real life too. Now, obviously, Steven Seagal in Bloodsport wouldn't really make a lot of sense, especially one of the reasons why they actually wanted to cast somebody who's a little smaller like Van Damme compared to somebody taller like Marko Dudikoff, aside from all the great martial arts ability, was when you're rooting for the hero, you kind of want an underdog type. So if the protagonist is bigger than all the guys that he fights, you almost assume that the threat isn't as big. So, and that's kind of a problem that Michael Jai White has in a lot of movies, because he's such like an alpha type dude, and he's tall and he's jacked, and when he's beating guys smaller than him, you're like, yeah, of course he beat the guy who's smaller than him, So I don't know, man. Michael Jai White would probably do a lot better as a superhero type, which he was in Spawn, obviously. And there's a whole interesting thing going on with Blade lately that I'll do a separate video about. And I don't know, I think he would do really good as a villain in films too, which he was in Universal Soldier: The Return against Van Damme, of course. But as that leading heroic protagonist, he almost has those comic book proportions where he doesn't have the vulnerability that Van Damme or even Stallone, who obviously, don't get me wrong, they're amazingly built, they're amazingly athletic, but they're like a normal sized guy. They're like 5'9", for example. So you do actually, it works better in film as far as having them as more of like the underdog type character, as obviously you've seen in Rocky 3 or even Rocky 4.
Whatever his secret activities were, his ninja training played a key role. Jeffrey Strumpf worked with Frank on many secret missions.
He's a miraculous man, and out of 300 agents that were in special operations assigned to Southeast Asia, he was the only one to come back alive.
Now, that part is hard to verify. I don't know where they come up with those numbers, and I don't know how or why Jeffrey would think that all these other guys have died. Maybe he heard like some of them died, for example. And this obviously is all kind of connected to this secret man book, and there's a lot of controversy related to this. I actually haven't released a video yet about Frank kind of talking about this and how they messed the book up, the publisher. It was actually quite a bit different. But the reason when he was talking about, he's not the type to kiss and tell or talk about this, he wrote this book when he was basically think he was going to die. So it didn't really matter for him if he got the information out at that point. But anyway, really interesting history behind all that stuff. Now, as far as this Jeffrey Strumpf guy goes, I did look him up on Facebook. He apparently went to California State University, Northridge, where, funny enough, Frank Dux went as well as myself. So small world, right? They do make mention of him, by the way. There's like a hit piece in the LA Times editorial about Frank Dux titled "Ninja, Hero or Master Fake? Others kick holes in fabled past of Woodland Hills martial arts teacher." Now, Jeffrey Strumpf is mentioned in here. For example, it says, another source that could authenticate his claims, Dux said, was Jeff Strumpf, this guy, a diet technician at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Sepulveda. Strumpf verified that Dux had served overseas. Strumpf said he met Dux in Naples, Italy in 1976, when Dux was delivering top secret messages for the Army. Told that Dux was in the Marines, Strump responded, I guess it was the Marines, for whom he was working. Strump said he was certain that Dux was there because he beat up 4 Italians who were bothering Strump and a friend on the street. I just stayed inside. I was in awe, Strump said. So, you know, regardless of what branch he thought Dux was in, Army, Marines, etc., it is an interesting story that Frank in Italy basically saved him and beat these guys up. So I don't know if Dux still talks to him, if they became friends or what. But yeah, I couldn't find too much else on him. I'll ask Frank if he still talks to the guy.
To ensure that Bloodsport captured Frank's larger-than-life heroics, Frank himself was hired as fight coordinator.
Speaking of which, the fight coordinator doing the fight choreography, you got to watch a video that I did talking all about that, and he even trained Van Damme prior to filming Bloodsport. So there's some cool content on this channel you guys got to check out. And one of the reasons that Bloodsport really sticks out and is memorable is the fight choreography. It just has like a really great pace, and obviously Van Damme helped so much. It wouldn't be the same without him, but it wouldn't be the same without the score. It wouldn't be the same without a lot of things.
What separates, I think, Bloodsport from any other film is the realism involved. There's actual contact being made by the fighters that are on the film.
Jean-Claude Van Damme stars as Frank in the movie.
That guy, by the way, Bernard Mariano, he really did get hit and busted his lip. And he talks about that. You could find articles online where he's talking about that. So Frank even talked about it when in the video where we talk about fight choreography, where he just got too close to Van Damme. And Frank was basically saying, you don't got to be that close. The camera, the depth perception is depending on like the angle, it's going to look like you got hit. You don't got to get that close. But anyway, the guy apparently didn't listen. But he's got a great story out of it.
Some people were hurt on the set because everybody put the best they have, and we did lots of slow motion. And when you're doing slow mo, you have to go for it. You have to touch to see the body shaking and everything. So we use real fighter, and that was almost like a competition because everybody they want to show the best. I mean, the best of them. So it was like a small kumite.
That's really cool, and you could tell they did make contact. Like when he's fighting Paco, for example, they're really landing those roundhouses in the ribs, and then until he finishes him off. And the way that the film is actually cut, it looks like he does hit him with that spin hook kick. So the problem that I have with a lot of modern martial art films, especially more that chop-saki kung fu style, is there looks like there's no intent to harm with these hits. They're kind of just going more through like a dance, and they're doing like 20 hits, and you know, some of them get through, some of them don't. They're already blocking, like they already like know what the other guy's going to do, which they obviously do because it's choreographed. Whereas Bloodsport, it definitely had more of a realistic element. Obviously, it's dramatized. You know, you're not gonna necessarily be doing some of these moves, but it's just that perfect balance that works on film, and it kind of uses that less is more approach. I actually prefer this pace. I hope this style of film comes back. We'll see. Look at the intensity Van Damme has there. He doesn't nearly get the credit as far as an actor goes. Obviously, people know he's this amazing martial artist and he moves so great on screen. But I'm telling you, that raw intensity and emotion, there's not a lot of other guys that can do that. Like, look at all these other martial art films that came out back in the day, full of different martial arts. They can't put on that kind of performance.
You got it!
See, look how great that is. Look at the intensity, man. It's such a great film. Jackson, by the way, is an amazing sidekick in this movie.
You got it!
This movie is a pretty nice example of a great bromance, in my opinion.
In all, over 50 fight scenes were shot, which meant weeks of rehearsals to ensure that the action would translate to the screen. The work was hard, but it was worth it.
That's really cool. So obviously you get to see some footage with Frank Dux and his students in the Dux-Rue school, which actually looks very similar to the Dux-Rue schools even today in Mexico that Francisco runs. They actually just opened a new one like within the last week in this big shopping center, and it was covered by the local media. So this Dux-Rue is still a thing. And you know, they got some hardcore dedicated students in, at least in Mexico, and probably elsewhere, but as far as like official schools, I know they're still thriving in Mexico. But this actually looks pretty fun. The guy running, doing the front flip, doing the shoulder roll. I mean, even if you don't do that in a real fight, it's still fun. There's like a lot of different reasons why people train martial arts, obviously for self-defense purposes, to get in better shape, to build discipline. Just all different reasons, and sometimes you just gotta have fun doing it, and also find different ways to improve yourself. Obviously physically is going to lead to spiritually and everything else, and it's also a way to express yourself, like even artistically. You could really see it in people like Bruce Lee or Jean-Claude Van Damme. They kind of had, well, you know, Bruce Lee obviously created his own style, Jeet Kune Do, and then Van Damme added so much to karate. And having that ballet background and the bodybuilding background and just the complete package, it's the way he expresses himself. And he did fight actual tournaments, but the way he expresses himself on film, I don't think anyone has done it that good, or probably ever will. I just don't see it happening. Which is why there's a reason why I made a video called JCVD, the best to ever do it, best on-screen fighter ever. So
watch how close it looks to the real thing.
Now, when they talk about watch how close it looks to the real thing, this kick is always funny when the jumping inside crescent and the way the guy turns after he gets hit kind of seems to defy physics. You think he turned the other way?
My head went back to the left. Say that again. Back and to the left.
I'm actually thinking now maybe that's not a mistake, because maybe the direction they wanted him to turn towards the camera. So again, this is a movie, and cinematically, it actually does look better to see the front of him.
So, what are you saying?
That theory aside, it's also possible that this guy is just a horrible stuntman and doesn't necessarily know how to take a hit that would match the reality of physics.
Thing.
Now this actual Kumite footage, it says actual Kumite. They blur the guys out. So in the promo, I think they want you to think that's Frank Dux on the right knocking this guy out, which they don't necessarily say. And when they say actual Kumite, well, it doesn't mean the Kumite that Bloodsport was based off of. That is a term used in competition. I think some of Kyokushin Karate founder Masuyama's tournaments, like he had a 100-man Kumite, for example, and that was referred to as a Kumite, obviously. So they probably did mean to deceive to some degree, but if you break it down and analyze it, it's like, well, technically they could call this an actual Kumite. And people in the comments section, they're great in this community, because they even supposedly translated this stuff in the background. You could see the banner, for example, and one guy said it reads World Karate Championships, which I don't doubt. And I had other people send me footage from like these Kyokushin tournaments in the late 70s, and it looks pretty much exactly like that. I mean, people even go further, where one guy, for example, and I don't know how legit this is, but yeah, this guy says the real Kumite footage is Kyokushin Karate Tournament, and it's clearly that the ref is a late Loic Hollander from Holland. So that may or may not be true, but it is cool that if it is, that the community and people watching these videos, like, there's somebody out there that knows something and could shed light and insight into this stuff. So yeah, you know, thanks to everyone for commenting. This is really cool, and people sharing like the Kumite footage or these Kyokushin matches that pretty much look exactly like that with that kind of banner. So I don't know how the producers of that Showtime promo got this clip. I don't know if they got it from Black Belt Magazine, who did the article on the Kumite. I don't know if they got it from Frank Dux. I think they needed something.
Well, I got to give him something. Come on, where's that tape I shot?
I think that's it.
Let's check it out.
And this footage, is kind of mysterious enough, and they block out the faces. So I think they were meant to deceive, where people would just think maybe that's Frank Dux fighting, maybe it's not, and throwing out like the terminology actual kumite. Well, these Kyokushin matches technically could be called kumites, so it's still factual. It's not a lie, but I think they did intentionally try to deceive whoever was watching it.
After his Kumite victory, Frank went on to win 329 straight matches and retired undefeated.
Now, those numbers are disputed, but again, you got to watch Frank Dux explaining the Real Kumite, because these aren't your typical matches, which 329, that's ridiculous. But if they were more like those Masayama 100-man Kumites, then yeah, okay, the numbers could actually make sense. And that's what Frank says, basically what they were.
He now lives in California and owns 2 karate schools where he passes down ancient ninja secrets to his students.
You got to check out a video I did with one of his early students from the 80s, Sky Benson, who was a karate tournament champion back in the 80s as a teenager in the Valley, like Karate Kid. He's like the real-life Johnny Lawrence, right? And then he shares his experience of going to, Frank Dux' school and how amazing that experience was. So anyway, check that video out. I'll link that in the description below.
Sport, the true story of a kumite and the people who fought in it.
I guess what I'm really proud of is that it isn't a story about violence. It's not, it's a story about human beings and faith and about determination and respect. And that's what I've run my life by, and that's what this movie's about.
Bloodsport, premiering March 4th, exclusively on Showtime.
I really love what Frank says there. Now, obviously, a lot of us, when we first watched it, we were intrigued by the title, and it did kind of invoke like, oh, here's some violent fighting, but that's not what the movie's about. Yes, it's a tournament film, but there's so much more going on there, like honor and just being the best at something, which I think innately everybody kind of like wants that, right? They want to be recognized, and they want to do it for themselves, knowing that they put that hard work and determination and dedication and achieve something.
Well, I'm just trying to be the best I can be. Not just for me, for Tanaka and my Shidoshi too.
But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this Bloodsport promo. And I think it's pretty fantastic. Obviously, they exaggerate a few things. But comment below and share some of your thoughts.